What's up, everybody? Welcome back to a early morning edition of the Rundown with Payton and Marcus. I'm Marcus. He's Payton. I feel like I have to say this because it's been a minute since we've spoken. How you doing, man?
I'm actually doing good. I'm here in Boynton Beach, my hometown for Thanksgiving, with my dad, ready to see the family. How about yourself, bro? Any big holiday plans?
Any big holiday plans? Yeah, I mean, Thanksgiving's tomorrow. I've got one at my dad's house for Thanksgiving. The Cowboys play tomorrow, so the house is going to get really, really loud at 4 o'clock. And the Giants, and they playing the Giants. My aunt's a Giants fan.
Ooh.
It's going to be really loud in the house tomorrow.
Split household?
Well, yeah, my dad's a Commanders fan. My stepmom's my stepmother's a Cowboys fan. I've got my aunt's from New York, so she's a Giants fan as well. And then my cousin's a Chiefs fan, but he's not. So we all know why. Yeah. Probably a split household. Maybe it's gonna be really loud down there. Now that I think about it, I'm probably gonna leave the house with the mic right now. But it's okay. Speaking of Thanksgiving, I just feel like I have to get this off my chest. And you don't have to agree with me. I am gonna ask you though. Just me personally, my personal opinion. Don't shoot me or rock your Glocks or anything. But turkey is super overrated and I hate it. And I just think of all the staples of all the holidays on the calendar, right? You've got Santa or Jesus, depending on how you're raised for Christmas. You know what I mean? You've got pumpkins and stuff for Halloween. You've got the leprechaun and Cupid and the New Year's baby. Of all the things you think of when you think of holidays, I feel like turkey just has to be at the bottom of the barrel because it's the worst staple on the calendar for a major holiday, I would say.
I could see that. But if the turkey's made right, it is still fire.
Well,
but
dry.
Most of the time it's dry. Most of the time the turkey is dry, and that's what ruins it.
There's nothing you can do to make it not dry. You can
you can put as much gravy on it as you want. Get as much stuffing as you want. If the turkey's dry, bro, turkey's dry.
If I am fortunate enough to get old with a wife and children, ham is going to be the staple of our Thanksgiving because ham is far more superior than turkey. And ham, we should all just acknowledge that ham is the new face of Thanksgiving, but no one wants to give ham any love. Speaking of new faces and changing things up, for the first time all season, I'm in the lead in our pick'em. And it's been a long time coming. I've also hit 100, which is also nice. Last week was such a weird week, though, There were some games last week you watched and you were just like, what was going on? The Panthers and Ravens game was 3-3 for 75% of the game. We talked before the show about how the Jets and the Patriots were 3-3 up until the punt return touchdown at the end of the game to give the Patriots the win. The Cowboys beat down on the Vikings, which while I expected the Cowboys to win, I didn't think it'd be 40-3. Talk about a crazy turnaround for the Vikings, of course, to go from potentially game of the year 2 weeks ago in Buffalo to this past week, just getting absolutely slacked at home. And if I'm being honest, I don't think it gets any easier for them because they've got the Patriots in Foxborough tomorrow night, I think it is. So it's not going to get any easier. These are our week 12 picks. Yes, you read the graphic correctly. I do have the Lions beating the Buffalo Bills tomorrow afternoon to kick off Thanksgiving. I do. Will the Lions beat the Buffalo Bills? Probably not. But I do think that the Vikings can beat the Lions. And despite what I said about the road getting a little bit tougher for the Vikings, I do think that they're the better team and they can go into Foxborough tomorrow night and get the job done against the Patriots.
Yeah. Also, there's a little typo. I picked the Vikings. I just want to make that clear. I did not pick the Patriots to win that game.
You did too. I also made this graphic at 6:07 in the morning.
Yeah, it's all good, bro. But I just wanted to clarify for everyone listening. I did not pick the Patriots against the Vikings because Marcus would be on my neck about that because every time I pick against the Vikings, it is a huge fiasco. I picked the Vikings to win.
So no, what happened was I have that game backwards. I put the game on the graphic backwards.
Because Minnesota's at home, right?
Minnesota at home, and I read the graphic wrong when I was 6 o'clock in the morning. I was kind of dog tired, but I wanted to get it done. But yeah, so yes, I do have the Lions beating the Buffalo Bills on Thanksgiving. Not just because I think they can, but I like what I've seen from the Lions these past couple weeks. And what we've known the Lions to do a lot this season is give a couple good teams a run for their money down the stretch. The Bills have not been good down the stretch in football games. Josh Allen has not been good down the stretch in football games. It could become a point of concern if that game is close heading into the fourth quarter and throughout the fourth quarter. So, yeah, upset of the year, Detroit Lions over the Buffalo Bills at home.
They're on a 3-game win streak, man. They're hot.
They've been looking good. And to all the losers out there who said that Dan Campbell should be fired, you're stupid. You are morons because he deserves his job. So there we go. That's our pick'em. We referenced the Dallas Cowboys a little bit. Again, they're 40-3 win over the Minnesota Vikings this past week, which was just insane. Dak Prescott had 276 yards and 2 touchdowns. CeeDee Lamb had a great day. Tony Pollard had a fantastic day. The Dallas Cowboys, are they legit contenders in the NFL for a Super Bowl this year?
Yes, 100% they are. I'm bought in on the Cowboys, and I was a little bit bought in even before this Vikings game. And like you said, I thought that Dallas could win. I picked the Vikings to win because they were 8-1, and they had just had a big win on the road against the Bills that I thought held a lot of weight, which led to me picking the Vikings. But, wow, the way that they won, this was an exclamation mark and a half. It was unbelievable what they did to the Vikings. It was almost like they should have mercy ruled them. It was complete.
They took the Vikings off national. They took that game off national television.
Yeah.
They said, let's get you guys to a different game. That game was bad.
Yeah, it was a complete beatdown of a team that was tied for first in the conference heading into that game. That is a huge statement win. This is a team that has a two-headed monster in the backfield that is up there with all the other great two-headed monsters in the NFL in terms of backfields. I would say they could even be on par with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt at some times, and that's saying a lot. I don't know if they're better than Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, but as of right now, how they've been playing, they could be. And they could be better. They could be the best backfield in the NFL. Then you have a decent offensive line, not as good as it once was a few years ago, but a decent offensive line. Now you're got Dak Prescott's back, a top 5 defense, the defensive player of the year in Micah Parsons. This team is well-rounded, and now they look like they have an identity. They know that they need Tony Pollard to win games. They know that they can't just give the ball to Zeke because they paid him a boatload of money, and they can't accept the fact that he's a little washed up. You have Zeke on a pitch count for short yardage situations. You're using Tony Pollard as a receiver and out of the backfield as more of like your main running back at this point. Now you have Dak Prescott just making the throws when he needs to make them rather than trying to put the team on his back and throw for 500 yards a game like he was before he got injured like 2 or 3 years ago. This Dallas team is unbelievably dangerous. They 100% are contenders. And this win against the Vikings last Sunday might just be a sign of things to come for them if they start to hit their stride through the second half of the season.
Look, I said this to my friends last night, and I'm going to say it again. And to my family that are not Cowboys fans, I apologize. You guys didn't raise me this way. I know I do have some family and friends that'll be proud. I have nothing left to root for. My team's season is done. Good win, I guess, 2 weeks ago against the Cowboys to make us feel good, but we're right back down to the nonsense and the garbage that we are. For all intents and purposes, I'm rooting for the Cowboys for the rest of the season. I have nothing left to give. I have no shame. I'm sure there's Packers fans who are going to see this and going to, cough my head on the stick. I don't give a damn. The Dallas Cowboys are a legit football team. And I said this has been a good season for me as far as this has probably been the best season I've had as far as looking into the crystal ball and seeing how things are going to look, right? I told Steez and I told Justin that the Broncos would suck. They didn't believe me. The Broncos stink, right? I told a lot of people that Devontae going to the Raiders would be okay, but not that great, and it's turned out to be even worse. I was right about that. I sat here in the offseason, and I said, if the Dallas Cowboys just feed Tony Pollard and let him be the guy that they rely on from 20 to 20, and let Zeke be the guy that they rely on, as you said, in short yardage situations and in the red zone, they'll win football games. They did that last week. Not only did they win the football game, it's the best game they've had offensively all season. It's the best game they've had offensively since against a team that's outside of the NFC East since like last season. Like, it's been a long time since we've seen the Cowboys look this good offensively. The Dallas Cowboys, I think, are right in the thick of things. The race for the first seed in the NFC is super, 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 super important. This is a 4-horse race. It's either going to be Philly, Minnesota, Dallas, or San Francisco. One of those 4 teams are going to get the number 1 seed. Whichever one of those 4 teams, as we all know, with the number 1 seed, has the inside track to the NFC Championship game. What's going to be interesting for me to see is if the Cowboys don't get the first seed, will they be able to stand the test of time and stand the test of wear and tear by having to go possibly on the road for that first game if they can't win this division? Because I think just this division might be a little out of reach at this point, unless the Eagles just start completely falling apart. And we'll talk about them in a second because they've been struggling a little bit these last 2 weeks. If they don't fall apart, if the Cowboys don't win this division, that will be the one concern is will the Cowboys be able to win games on the road? But if they're playing how they played last week, I have no doubt in my mind that we could see for the first time in almost 30 years the Dallas Cowboys playing in a conference championship game. And it would be utter pandemonium, of course, but also like just say what you want about the Cowboys. Football's better when the Dallas Cowboys are competitive. They are a staple franchise in the league. They're one of the more storied franchises in the league. And it'll be something worth seeing the Cowboys back playing on Championship Sunday in the NFC Championship game. Now, the Philadelphia Eagles are 9-1 after losing to the Commanders 2 weeks ago on Monday Night Football and then struggling to beat the 4-6-1 Colts in Indianapolis this past week. It doesn't look like they're riding the ship anytime soon. How concerning are the Eagles' recent struggles over these last 2 weeks?
I would say they're pretty concerning, mainly because when the Eagles were 8-0, we were all kind of like, yeah, like they're a really good football team. They're playoff contenders. They might even be contenders in the NFC just because the NFC seemed so wide open at the time. But with how Dallas has been playing and how other teams in the NFC have been playing as of recent, it seems like the Eagles are fading at the worst time in terms of the season. You normally want to finish the season strong and have momentum going into the playoffs. While they pulled off the win against Indianapolis last Sunday, that's concerning how close it was. Indianapolis is not a good football team, and while they did beat the Raiders in Jeff Saturday's first head coaching game in his head coaching debut, Jeff Saturday is very inexperienced as a head coach. And I feel like if you want to be able to call yourself a contender, you need to be able to beat the Colts by more than what they beat them by 2 points. You need to be able to beat by
1 point on a Jalen Hurts last second touchdown.
Okay, yeah, by 1 point. You have to beat the Colts by more than 1 point. Now they beat the Colts, and a win is a win. Okay, I'll give them that. But what we're seeing is a big drop off in terms of passing yards. These last 2 games, they haven't totaled over 175 yards through the air. That is concerning because that was the biggest concern of the Eagles going into the year. It was like, yes, we know they're going to be dominant on the ground. We know that. But what can they do through the air? And through the first 8 weeks, they looked impressive through the air. A.J. Brown seemed like he had a huge and immediate impact on the team in their passing game. But now they're reverting right back to their old ways as of last year, despite having A.J. Brown. And they can't seem to pass the ball as effectively as you would want to see it out of a team that is supposed to be considered a contender. So yes, the Eagles' struggles are concerning, especially since their division rival that we mentioned earlier, the Dallas Cowboys, look like world beaters at the moment. If they can't get back to their style of play that they were playing through the first 5-6 weeks of the season where they really thrown that ball great, I would say that they might lose this division to Dallas.
It's possible, and I think when we headed into the season, right, we knew that this division was either going to go to the Dallas Cowboys or was going to go to the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, that's because we didn't expect the Washington Commanders and the New York Giants to be as good as they've been so far this season. And while the Giants aren't on the show for today, and while we will talk about the Commanders in a second, this division is still kind of wide open when you think about it. Like, these teams are, I think, all of like a game or a game or two apart from each other. And it's a really close race. And if you're the Philadelphia Eagles, we looked at last season, right? Up until that game against the Commanders, the Eagles under Jalen Hurts in the regular season were undefeated. Like, this wasn't just impressive because they were 8-0 this season. It was because when Jalen Hurts got the start at the end of last season, they were pushing into the playoffs. They had ran the table to get into the playoffs, and it was really impressive. And aside from, of course, the bad game against the Bucs, this team hadn't lost a football game. So in the Jalen Hurts era, this team has only lost 2 games, one in the regular season and one in the postseason, one to Tom Brady, one to Taylor Heinicke. I mean, what are you going to do? But this is a Philadelphia Eagles football team that has a Dallas Goddard's hurt, I understand, but they have Devontae Smith, they have A.J. Brown, they have one of the best O-lines in football. They have Boston Scott, Miles Sanders, guys who can catch the ball out of the backfield. And to Payton's point, they have not been producing through the air. And that was the major concern was, can Jalen Hurts spread the love, and can this team still be just as effective through the air as we knew they were going to be on the ground? On my show this past week on Go Talk to Marcus, and I don't like to reference so often, but I did mention this, and I did say this very simply. Look, I understand that you brought in Ndamukong Suh. I understand that Jordan Davis was hurt against the Commanders. That's not going to solve the problem. While it's nice that you'll probably never get ran on for 152 yards again, the way that the Commanders did 2 weeks ago, they're not going to solve the passing problem. And the passing problem is they can't pass. They can't throw the football. And if you can't throw the football, you're not going to be able to score points in this league. Not if you can't throw the football against the Dallas Cowboys, you're in trouble. If you can't throw the football against the San Francisco 49ers, you're in trouble. Because those are 2 defenses that if you become one-dimensional, they're going to eat you alive. It's not going to be a recipe for success. Like, they're going to have to figure this out, and they're going to have to figure this out soon. By my estimation, they've got a cupcake game this week against the Packers at home because the Packers stink. Now, the Packers did get a win against the Cowboys a couple weeks ago, and as you guys saw the graphic, I do expect the Eagles to get this win. If for some reason the Eagles lose against the Packers, depending on how they lose that game, it could be. I'm not going to say it'll be time to hit the panic button on the Eagles this season, but it can definitely be time to start to raise some questions about if they can continue and if maybe this hot start was a little bit too much smoke and mirrors, as we've said with teams in the past that have started hard, most recently, last year's Arizona Cardinals team, who started the season 7-0 and won 3 games the rest of the way. Hopefully, the Eagles don't fall into that bucket. Hopefully, the Eagles don't fall into the bucket of the Pittsburgh Steelers from the COVID year. But
exactly, there's a team that does this every year. They start off the season on absolute fire. Normally, it's the Cardinals, but as you said a few years ago, it was the Steelers as well, 11-0. But things just kind of fell into place, and they got a little bit of luck in the first half of the season. Then defenses started figuring them out. They started playing really, really tough games, and they just couldn't pull through. Teams that peak later in the season, like the Bengals last year, those are the teams that normally can make a run in the playoffs.
Yep.
The Eagles seem like they peaked way too early this year, and unless they get right back on track, this is really, really alarming for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Super. Now, like I said, and as you guys can tell by the title, this is a very heavy on the NFC East this week. That's because the NFC East this season has just been an extremely interesting extremely interesting division. This is historically the best division in football as far as this is the only division in football that has a team that has won at least one Super Bowl all the way around. This is a really good division. And so far this season, the Commanders are 6-5, and they are last in the division at 6-5. But they started off the season 1-4. They've won 5 of their last 6. They've been on a hot streak. They got a solid win against the Texans last week. They've got another interesting game this week against the who do they play this week?
Atlanta Falcons.
Against the Falcons, which, I mean, if we're being honest, is likely another win.
Yep.
We've seen them struggle against the Falcons over the last couple seasons, but I'd be safe to say I'd be comfortable saying that the Commanders are going to get this win. Right now, all 4 teams are not in the playoffs. A couple weeks ago, that was the case. Can the Commanders make the playoffs this season?
Yeah, 100% they can. This is where leadership comes into play. And leadership is a huge, huge underrated attribute for quarterbacks. Carson Wentz is not a leader. He hasn't been a leader since he entered the NFL out of North Dakota. He has not been a leader. The instant Taylor Heineke comes in, despite being less talented, despite being on paper physically not as good as Carson Wentz, he's not even really putting up better numbers than Carson Wentz was. But it is night and day how this Commanders team is playing as opposed to when Carson Wentz was the starting quarterback and now when Taylor Heineke is the quarterback. Because Taylor Heineke is a guy that players want to play for. They want to play hard for. They want to be physical. Even on the defensive side of the ball, you see it out of the Commanders. And this is why they're 4-1 with Taylor Heineke at quarterback, despite him only really throwing 2 touchdowns in these last 5 games. How do you win games like that? It's because they're playing physical. They're playing with their hearts in the game for Taylor Heineke because they see him putting his body on the line for making these plays, trying to get the extra yards. This Commanders team has heart. They have energy now, and that's something that they didn't have when Carson Wentz was their quarterback. Now, you look at their next schedule. You mentioned the game against the Falcons. That will probably be a victory based off how they've been playing, and the Falcons are extremely inconsistent. Then they have back-to-back games against the Giants. The Giants, they got destroyed by the Lions last week, and we've been saying all year that they have been pretenders as opposed to contenders per se. Then they have to go to San Francisco. That's going to be a rough game. They'll lose that. They'll probably lose against the Browns, especially since Deshaun Watson will be back by then. But we don't know. What if Deshaun Watson sucks? We saw Russell Wilson go to Denver, and he sucks. So you never know now. You never know who's going to be good and who's not.
Yeah.
And then they finished the season off against the Cowboys. In the NFC, there is a chance that they can make the playoffs. Absolutely. You would need either the doors to fall off the Giants, though, or another team that's contending for a wild card spot. But yes, this Commanders team can make the playoffs. They have a ton of heart, and it's good to see Taylor Heineke finally get his shot to be a starter in the NFL. Even though I don't think he's that great, I don't think he's a franchise quarterback. He has spirit and he has heart, and you can see that in how the team is responding to him.
I think what's most important to note about these last, 6 games for the Commanders is 4 of them are on the road. 4 of them are at home, excuse me. This week against the Falcons, in 3 weeks against, is that 2 weeks? 3 weeks against the Commanders, or against the Giants, their second one. And then they close out New Year's Day against the Browns, and then the week after New Year's Day against the Cowboys. This is a football team that I think, looking at this schedule, has one guaranteed loss. I don't think they win in the Bay. That's the only game I look at and I say they're going to lose that game. The Commanders finished the season on going 5-1. That puts them at 11-6 on the season, which they probably won't be 11-6 because it's the Commanders, and the Commanders find a way to lose games they have no business losing. But if the Commanders are 11-6, unless this division, because let's think about it. Being 11-6 means you have 2 games over the Giants, which automatically will put you ahead of the Giants if the Giants also finish 11-6 on the season because of the divisional tiebreaker. That puts them firmly in the contest to win to make the playoffs. You obviously got the Vikings, who are going to be a lock. At this point in the season, there are 3 teams that are virtual locks for the playoffs in the NFC as far as statistically, not just what we all expect to happen, but statistically. The Eagles have a 99% chance of making the playoffs. The Vikings have a 99% chance of making the playoffs. The Cowboys have a 99.3%. Those are the 3 highest percentages of making the playoffs at this point in the season. You obviously want to throw the 49ers in there as well because I think they're getting hot at the right time, as you mentioned, and they're going to win the division. So that's 4 teams there. The Seahawks, just I think because of the virtue of their hot start, and because of the fact that the NFC South is terribly bad, and because of the fact that the Packers aren't going to be able to turn around and there's no one else in the NFC North that can make the playoffs, the Seahawks are probably going to be a playoff team as well. So the last 2 spots, you're talking about a fight between the Giants, you're talking about a fight between the Commanders, and you're talking about a fight between maybe some other team if they can kind of figure it out. But really, that's 7 teams right there, which means even right now today, the Commanders are a playoff team, which is at 6-5. So it's definitely possible for them to make the playoffs. I'm just very cautious of the Commanders all the time because we get to this time of the year and they look good, and then sometimes the wheels fall apart at the most unexpected moment. It's just been in their MO for the past 6 or 7 years.
Like if they went and laid an egg this Sunday against the Falcons, I wouldn't be shocked. I would not be shocked at all.
No one would be shocked.
No. I wouldn't even be shocked if they lost the rest of these games. But but as it stands right now, yeah, they can contend for a playoff spot.
It is the NFC East is a very interesting division right now because there's just so much going on in the NFC East. But let's do some buy sell before we got out of here. I want to start with something that's going on in the AFC. Are you buying or selling Zach Wilson overall as an NFL quarterback?
Sell. Dude, I sold him before he even got in the NFL. He never was a leader. He never had that, he never had any sort of it factor whatsoever. We saw him play in BYU, and I remember that game against Coastal Carolina. He did not play well in that game. That was his only game against a ranked opponent. And every time he played a good team at BYU, Zach Wilson sucked. Zach Wilson has gotten to the NFL, and he sucks. He sucked his rookie year. He sucks this year. He's a terrible quarterback. And now, like I said before the show, he's a terrible teammate. How? You played at a Division I school. You've probably been the star quarterback since high school. How do you not know the basic answer to the question? Your defense only gave up 3 points, bro. 3 points. In the NFL, if you only allow 3 points, you have to win the game. You have got to win the game. The Jets have a championship caliber defense right now, and they are not going to go anywhere, mainly because Zach Wilson is the quarterback of this team. It's reported that he has 1 more week to prove that he can be the quarterback of this team. If not, he's out. Joe Flacco's in. And mark my words, if Joe Flacco's the quarterback of this team, the Jets are going to be pretty good. The Jets are going to be pretty decent. They're going to make the playoffs in the AFC, and they're going to be a pretty solid football team. If Zach Wilson is the quarterback of this team, they're done. And the teammates are done with him. How in the world do you act like this was not your problem? The Jets averaged 2.3 inches per play in the second half of last week's game. How? How do you do that? That's this much. That's this much. That's unfathomably bad. Unfathomably bad.
It's so unfathomably bad that Payton couldn't get the word out.
Exactly. I can't even fathom how to say it.
Yeah.
The Jets suck, and it's only because of one reason, and that's Zach Wilson.
Yeah. When you look at the Jets are bad. That's all I have to say. I don't even want to sit in and kind of get any further than that. Let's stick in the AFC. The Tennessee Titans are going to be the only team out of the AFC South to make the playoffs. I mean, it's pretty much guaranteed. Look at how bad this division is. Are you buying or selling the Tennessee Titans as a threat in the AFC this year?
Selling. They're too one-dimensional. I don't trust any of the receivers. I don't trust Ryan Tannehill. I don't think the Titans trust Ryan Tannehill, which is why they went out and traded for Malik or went out and drafted Malik Willis in the offseason. I think that they're going to make the playoffs, and they're going to get beat in the first round most likely.
The Titans suck.
Yeah.
Don't let the record fool you. The Titans are a bad football team. They have the benefit of playing against the worst division of football 6 times a year, and they have a couple other good wins in there as well. The Titans aren't a good football team. Here's a good one. The Green Bay Packers have not been good this season. They have been god-awful this season, and there's been there's been rumblings across the interwebs that maybe the Packers should bench Aaron Rodgers and just get Jordan Love some run. You buying or selling the idea of benching Aaron Rodgers in favor of Jordan Love at this point?
That's funny. I got this question last Monday on this just in, and no, I'm selling that. You should not put in Jordan Love because Jordan Love sucks. Jordan Love is not a good quarterback. If he was a good quarterback, Aaron Rodgers would be playing in a different uniform. They would have traded Aaron Rodgers. They wouldn't have signed him to a big extension. He'd be playing either for Denver or another team. He would not be in a Green Bay Packers uniform if Jordan Love was good. And the Packers know that. The Packers know that Jordan Love isn't their guy. So why bail on the whole season? Why tick off Aaron Rodgers when you know Jordan Love isn't your guy regardless for the future? And I get that they spent a first-round pick for him, but it's time to move on from the Jordan Love experiment. He has not looked good. He hasn't looked good in the preseason. He hasn't looked good in any offseason or practice. He's just not a good quarterback. It was a terrible pick. It's time to give up on that talk. Aaron Rodgers is your quarterback. He's a Hall of Famer. Whether you like him or not, whether he's playing well right now or not, he belongs in the game. Jordan Love does not.
Thank you. I can't answer this question because I'll be labeled as biased as a Packers fan. So I'm glad you're on the side of reason. One more before we go. Jimmy G threw 4 touchdowns Monday night in Mexico City in a dominant win over the Arizona Cardinals. Are you buying Jimmy G leading this team to a victory in the Super Bowl this season?
Yeah, I 100% think that could happen. Right now, if I'm picking a team to make it out of the NFC and maybe even potentially win the Super Bowl, it's the San Francisco 49ers. What they have now offensively with Christian McCaffrey, Jimmy Garoppolo wins games. I don't know how to like everyone's like, oh, what does Jimmy G do? He's carried by a good defense and a running game. It doesn't matter. The dude doesn't lose. The dude wins football games. We know the Jimmy G recipe works. We know it does. We've seen it happen. Jimmy Garoppolo wins on Sundays. He wins on Sundays. That's all that matters. Yeah. He wins. And on Mondays, too. And on Thursdays. Jimmy Garoppolo wins. He always has, and that's what he always will do. And now that he has Christian McCaffrey, this offense is going to be dangerous. They're averaging, almost 29 points per game now with Christian McCaffrey since the trade. They're going to win the NFC West. They're going to be in the NFC Championship game, and they probably will win that. I would give them the edge over Dallas as of right now to win the NFC. Who knows what happens in the Super Bowl? But yes, right now, Jimmy Garoppolo is that guy. I am buying that he can win a Super Bowl this year. And that will give San Francisco an extremely interesting situation going into the offseason that I said when I was doing the Payton Doyle show, one of the last episodes ever, when Trey Lance got hurt, I said Jimmy Garoppolo is going to come in. The San Francisco 49ers are going to light the world on fire. I didn't expect for them to get McCaffrey, but especially now that they got McCaffrey, they're going to Jimmy Garoppolo is going to force John Lynch to trade Trey Lance this offseason. He's going to end up staying in the 49ers as their franchise quarterback. Trey Lance is going to be playing football elsewhere. And now the tables have turned. Trey Lance is now the quarterback that is going to be traded this offseason. Jimmy Garoppolo is the franchise quarterback for the 49ers moving forward.
Jimmy G is the most disrespected quarterback in the NFL right now. It's actually not that close. He's won more games than just about anyone in the last 22 years of football. Only 4 guys have won a higher percentage of their games than Jimmy G has. Tom Brady, who's the greatest of all time. Pat Mahomes, who could very well be on his way to becoming the greatest of all time. Lamar Jackson, who's an MVP and nothing like anything we've ever seen before. And Peyton Manning, who's the greatest regular season quarterback the game has ever seen. And then there's Jimmy G, good old Jimmy G. Look,
and he belongs there.
Say what you want about Jimmy G not being able to do this and not being able to do that, missing over here and missing over this, the miss pass to Emmanuel Sanders or the pick and the this and the that. Jimmy G wins football games. And last I checked, you get into the sport of football to win football games. Jobs are determined based on how many games you win and how many games you lose. Coaches get fired because of win-loss records. QBs get traded and cut because of QB records. Or because of win-loss records. GMs get fired because of playoff records. Presidents of football operations get fired and hired based on what they think they can do with a win-loss record. Wins and losses don't just dictate standings in the division, don't just dictate height, don't just dictate pretending and contending. It doesn't just dictate playoff standings. It doesn't just dictate Super Bowls. Winning and losses dictates every nuance of the construction of a football team. And the quarterback is under the most pressure when teams win and when teams lose. Because here's the thing. Jimmy G can have a perfect day. And I mean perfect. Statistically perfect, but Jimmy G perfect. He can have a perfect day. And if Debo drops a ball here, or if George Kittle drops a ball there, or if the defense doesn't show up and this team loses, guess who gets the blame? Jimmy G. If this team goes out there and this team stinks up the joint, but it's because there was fumbles and the defense was letting up a whole bunch of all this other stuff, or maybe the other team was just having a really, really, really good day. Guess who gets blamed for that? Jimmy G. But when they go down to Mexico City and they put their foot in the Arizona Cardinals' ass, everyone gets credit for that except Jimmy G. And that is absurd to me. I talked about on my show this past week about how Josh Allen had 6 red zone turnovers, double the amount of anyone else in the NFL, and he leads the leagues in interceptions. But no one bats an eye. But if Jimmy G has 10 turnovers and 6 red zone interceptions, or 6 red zone turnovers, they want Jimmy G gone yesterday. Jimmy G is the most disrespected quarterback in the NFL today, and he has been over the last 3 years. If any other quarterback in a 4-year span leads his team to the playoff 3 times with 2 NFC Championship appearances and a Super Bowl appearance, potentially we're talking about another NFC Championship game appearance this season and maybe another Super Bowl. In that span, they don't get half the disrespect that Jimmy G has gotten over the last 4 years, and it is absurd. Does Jimmy G make mistakes? Yes, he makes mistakes. Every quarterback has made mistakes. Tom Brady makes mistakes. Aaron Rodgers has made mistakes all season. Russell Wilson has made mistakes all season. The best of the best has made mistakes. No one's perfect. But the fact that we're going to sit here and act like Jimmy G is not the past, present, and future of the San Francisco 49ers is absurd. Can you sit here and guarantee me right now that if Trey Lance is a starter next season, if over the next 4 years, Trey Lance is going to take you to 2 NFC Championship games and a Super Bowl with a possible for a third and a second, respectively? No, you can't do that. You can't guarantee me that. But what I can guarantee you is that maybe Jimmy G does miss a throw here and there. Maybe Jimmy G does make a bad read here or there. Maybe Jimmy G does find a way to Jimmy G it in the most inopportune times. But the one thing I can guarantee you is when Jimmy G is under center, this team wins 3 times as many football games as they do with him than as they do without him. That's not analytics. That's a fact. And when you have a fact that glaring in front of you, how could you possibly sit here and try to sell me on this notion that this team will be better off with Trey Lance? Get out of here with that baloney. Jimmy G is a solid quarterback. Jimmy G can lead this team to a Super Bowl again this season. I think he will lead this team to a Super Bowl this season. And Jimmy G can and probably will deliver a Lombardi trophy to the San Francisco 49ers this season. And then what are you going to have? You're going to have another situation that we have in Green Bay where you got a guy named Aaron Rodgers who wins you 2 back-to-back MVPs. The playoff success wasn't that great. But 2 MVPs, and you got a guy you traded up for in the second round that you can't use because Aaron Rodgers showed you that he is more than capable of still being productive in today's NFL. Jimmy G so far this season, since he's been the starter, has led the San Francisco 49ers. I don't think they've lost since Jimmy G has played football this season. I don't think. They maybe have 1 loss this season. I'm not mistaken. I really can't tell you. I don't think this team has lost since Jimmy G has started. Maybe they have. But nonetheless, with Trey Lance as quarterback, I thought the cap for this team was a wild card. With Jimmy G as the quarterback, I thought the cap for this team is an appearance in the Super Bowl because that's what we know to be the case. And I think what happened was people believed in Trey Lance, not because of what Trey Lance can do, but because of the ceiling of the 49ers as a whole, and because of how good the 49ers are constructed and because of how good the 49ers are coached. Everyone thought that if Trey Lance got dropped in there, it'd all be the same. And it's not. And Jimmy G deserves a lot more respect than what he's gotten over these last couple seasons. And if Jimmy G delivers a Super Bowl to the Bay this season, John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan, and Bang Bang Niner Gang, the 49er fan faithful, are going to have a lot of things to try to figure out. Because there's no way in the last year of his contract you're going to let Jimmy G walk in free agency for a bag of chips just because you said this was Trey Lance's team. And if you do that and Trey Lance doesn't pan out, or Jimmy G goes somewhere else and takes all this success, all this prosperity somewhere else, John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan are done. If Jimmy G walks out of San Francisco and he goes and he prospers for another football team. And that's not a prediction. That's a fact. That will happen if Jimmy G leaves the San Francisco. He will go and he will prosper somewhere else and prove that this was not a 49ers product. This is a product of Jimmy G being a damn good quarterback, and he deserves all the love that he deserves.
Could you imagine the Jets right now with Jimmy G?
The Jets right now with Jimmy G, I look at, they win the division. Jimmy G on the Jets could take that team possibly on a run in the playoffs, if we're being honest. That's a really good football team. It's a really good football team with a solid O-line, a great defense led by Sauce Gardner. They've got weapons on both sides. You got Garrett Wilson. You got Breece Hall. That's a good football team.
Like right now, there's teams hoping that John Lynch decides to stick with Trey Lance for some odd reason because he won't give up his pride and admit that trading up for Trey Lance was a mistake. As an organization, you need to cut your losses and move on sometimes. You made a big leap. You traded with Miami 3rd overall to draft Trey Lance, despite having Jimmy G, who led you to a Super Bowl just 2 years prior, right? You made that big leap. You made the big risk. You lost. You still have Jimmy G. You still have him. You managed to still have him. He's still winning games for you. You can come out of this unscathed if you just keep Jimmy Garoppolo and move on. If they continue to ride this Trey Lance is going to save us and be our future train, you're right. John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan, they're fired. They're done. That's how you lose your job in the NFL.
100%. It's no debate. You do not let a guy that has done this much for you since he's been there, and you see what you've done without him. You don't let this guy walk out your door for nothing. Why do you think the well was so dry when they said they could trade Jimmy G? Because everyone knew that this was Jimmy G's last year of his contract. No one's going to trade for a guy who's going to be gone come February. No one's going to do that. They're going to wait. And I bet you that every time that they step out on the football field, I know this is a crazy thing to say, but I'm going to say it. I'm going to clip it and I'm going to put it everywhere, and come for me if you want to, but this is facts. I'd bet you every dollar I have in my pocket, which I don't have pockets right now, but in my account, that every day that Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch step out onto that football field to watch the 49ers play football, I bet you in the back of their mind, they are hoping that Jimmy G stinks it up, because it will be inexcusable. Let's say the 49ers don't make it to the Super Bowl. Okay, maybe you've got an argument to say, let's see what Trey Lance does. But I bet you every week, Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch go out there on that football field and they hope that Jimmy G plays bad. Because every time Jimmy G plays good and this team keeps winning and this team keeps rising the standings and this team keeps looking more and more legit like a team that can make it back to the Super Bowl again, it gets harder and harder to look down at the other side of the bench and see your young guy, Trey Lance, who you knew was not ready. You knew Trey Lance was not ready to be an NFL quarterback, but you wanted to give him the chance anyway, because you can't have the 3rd overall pick just sitting on the bench without a legit reason. You can do that with a guy like Jordan Love because he was a lower overall pick. You can do that with some of these other guys, some of these 2nd or 3rd or 4th round guys. You can't have a top 3 quarterback picked in the draft sitting on the bench. That is what the world of sports and the community around football has led us to believe, and that is just wrong and it's false. Because you look at a guy like Zach Wilson, who was picked 2nd overall, and he's god-awful, and he should still be sitting on the bench today. He should have never started for the Jets because he wasn't ready. Trey Lance had 11 starts coming in. He wasn't ready. You tried to give him the keys to the kingdom. Unfortunately, he got hurt. Now, the rightful heir to the throne in San Francisco, Jimmy G, has shown you that he deserves that spot. And if come season's end, the 49ers are still prospering the way they were before Trey Lance, before when it was just Jimmy G, you can't come up with a logical explanation to sit there and say, yeah, well, we're going to let you walk anyway. And if Jimmy G doesn't get re-signed at the end of this season, John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan should be fired. Because at some point, we're going to have to stop looking at Jimmy G. How about the fact that Kyle Shanahan is just a bad coach in the 4th quarter? No one wants to acknowledge that. No one wants to acknowledge that Kyle Shanahan was the offensive coordinator on the football team that gave up the biggest meltdown in the history of the Super Bowl, 28-3. You want to clown the Falcons? Clown Kyle Shanahan. Kyle Shanahan has been historically bad in 4th quarters as in his tenure as an offensive coordinator and as a head coach. But no one wants to talk about it. All they want to talk about is Jimmy G. Jimmy G, I so desperately want to see Jimmy G win a Super Bowl in a San Francisco 49ers uniform so we can shut the hell up about Jimmy G and start giving him his love. And then all the attention can go to where it needs to be, Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch. Because Jimmy G is a damn good quarterback, and he deserves a lot more respect than what he's been getting over these last few years. And now I'm off my soapbox because we're
this was secretly a Jimmy G show. Secretly.
It was.
It was a surprise.
Yeah.
We said it was going to be about the NFC East, and we talked about that. But
Jimmy.
really,
yeah,
that was just the tip of the iceberg. The rest,
Garoppolo, Big Dick Jimmy.
Jimmy G.
Jimmy.
Listen, this is a Jimmy G. This is a Jimmy G fan show.
It is.
Like,
it is.
We are heads of the Jimmy G fan club.
No, 100%. Like, and if you didn't know that,
also like Colin Cowherd.
Oh, Colin's such a great dude, bro. I love Colin. Colin's great. Whenever he talks Jimmy G, I just love it because you can't say anything wrong about Jimmy G. It's Jimmy G, bro. Let's be serious. Yeah. It's Jimmy G. It's Jimmy G, and it makes all the sense in the world. So, yeah, man. Look, it's always a pleasure to do the rundown. Thank you guys for getting up early with us for the people that did, and of course, you guys enjoy watching. Hope you guys enjoyed watching. You guys enjoy your Thanksgiving, and we'll be back next week. One of these
Hopefully
days.
the turkey's not dry.
Hopefully the turkey's not dry. Bro, we got to start a petition to just make Ham the new official face of Thanksgiving because Ham deserves to be.
I would sign that.
Yeah,
I would sign that.
So you guys enjoy your Thanksgiving. You guys enjoy the football tomorrow. You guys enjoy your week. You guys enjoy the beginning of the holiday season. We'll be back next week with more of the rundown with Payton and Marcus. Thank you guys for watching as always. You guys have a damn good life.